Prince Andrew has always been a problem. Now, the Queen, he was obviously perceived to be the favoured son, but even if she'd lived longer, she was hoping to solve what she referred to as the Andrew problem and get him to move. But Andrew has just decided to dig his heels in, and the King, with this decision, it would seem, has finally lost patience.
It appears that Prince Andrew has been cut off financially by the King, with reports that his annual allowance, believed to be around £1 million a year, has now been stopped. Let's speak to royal correspondent Rupert Bell. Morning, Rupert.
Good morning, Chloe.
So what details do we know? I mean, first of all, he gets, around £1 million a year? But without that, I'm just wondering how he's going to finance his lifestyle.
Well, he's saying he's now found some means to fund that lifestyle through his international trade connections, which, of course, was one of the things that he did before he was cut off from the royal family in terms of duties. So it will be interesting. It's been a long-running saga, this, because the King really wants to sort of downsize and can't see why his brother should want to remain in this huge house, 30-room royal lodge, and not move into Frogmore Cottage, which was, of course, the home of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. But more importantly, it is within the royal security zone. So it has its inbuilt security because of where it is, rather than having to fork out £1 million a year to give Prince Andrew the security that he requires. But the one thing we know about Prince Andrew, he's stubborn, and he believes it is his right to be there. He has a lease for 55 years, I think, still on the house, which he is responsible for the upkeep, but he doesn't want to move. And so at the moment, he feels like a bit of a prisoner in the Royal Lodge.
So that £1 million that Prince Andrew gets a year, that's just for security?
Well, I think that it's a sort of mainly for the upkeep and as a sort of responsibility for looking after it. Bearing in mind, security is expensive.
Yeah.
So therefore, it is used to provide the sort of necessary security, plus also probably some upkeep as well within the place, because there are lots of royal treasures within Royal Lodge that need obviously the insurance and protection, not just about worrying about Prince Andrew, but obviously if someone should come in and decide to steal them. So I think, but Prince Andrew has always been a problem. Now, the Queen, he was obviously perceived to be the favoured son, but even if she'd lived longer, she was hoping to solve what she referred to as the Andrew problem and get him to move. But Andrew has just decided to dig his heels in, and the King, with this decision, it would seem, has finally lost patience.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering the dynamic of that relationship, because from an outsider's point of view, he's the King. Doesn't he get to tell his brother, this is what you have to do? Some people may find it amazing that Prince Andrew can even have the ability to dig his heels in.
Well, I think that's probably one of the problems that Prince Andrew has, is that he occasionally is convinced of his rightness and he gets himself into hot water. His stubbornness, maybe sometimes his own arrogance, has caused him to create these problems. For most people looking in, and say, well, it seems entirely logical. A 5-bedroom house, you're not really allowed to do much, wouldn't seem to be the worst decision ever, because there's a house there sitting for you. Presumably it's all been upgraded when the Sussexes were there, so I assume it's pretty comfortable. I haven't been inside it, so I can't vouch 100%, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be uncomfortable for him. But, you know, he feels he's lost everything. And if he loses his house, well, then he probably even feels that even more has been taken away from him. So it's an interesting dynamic, as you quite rightly say, between these two. But the King is trying, maybe in a way, to force his hand. But if Andrew says, I can afford to live here, then there's not much the King can do.
What do we know about the relationship between the King and Prince Andrew? Is it strained? Because as you rightly pointed out, this has gone on for a long time now, ever since, you know, that disastrous interview on Newsnight and all the links to Jeffrey Epstein.
I think there will be one of total frustration. Look, the family has, you know, got two brothers, you know, two generations of brothers who seem to have a fractured relationship. Obviously, William and Harry is the most high profile, but this clearly, I think, from a King's point of view, he is completely frustrated that his brother can't see sense. He's created all the problems, that's Andrew has, And he should be actually sort of, in a way, manning up and saying, right, I've done this for the good of the family. But Andrew does seem to, and that's why the king feels it's a problem. He's trying to apply some common sense, and everyone looking in probably thinks it's not the worst decision at all. But Andrew doesn't see it like that, and that is putting the relationship under strain. There's no two ways about it.
Really interesting. Thank you, Rupert. That is royal correspondent Rupert Bell. You can read more about this with your digital subscription to The Times today, thetimes.com. Let me just read you this from the piece in The Times, which is very, very interesting. A friend of Charles previously told The Times, this can be done tidily or untidily. It can be done with grace and dignity, or it can be forced upon him. It's all rather sad. But as things stand, life at Royal Lodge is set to become increasingly cold and uncomfortable for the Duke. The only question now is when he will realise that he has become a prisoner of his own pride. Ouch.